In this video, I'm going to talk about the use of some different tools that you can use to analyze data on a graph once you've collected some data. So for this test, I'm going to accelerate a car down an incline. Let me check my hardware setup. It doesn't see anything, so I'll choose interface and just click OK so you can refresh. Sometimes you have to do that. So if you're not collecting data, you might want to refresh your hardware setup. I'm going to go to Table and Graph, and for the independent data, I'll choose time, and for my dependent data, I'll choose position, and I'll set up my graph as well. I'll go position here. Let me move this over here like this and make my graph a little bit bigger. All right. So I'm going to take a cart and I'm going to let it accelerate down an incline. So I'll click the record button. And I get some data there. All right, looks good. And then I'll zoom it with the first button here to zoom my data. Okay, so I have my data here, my raw data, and my graph. And sometimes I want to look at exact data points on here. So there is a set of crosshairs here, right there, that is called the coordinate tool. So I can just click that, okay, and I can bring it down to a data point and lock it on a data point. So that's 0.85 seconds, and I can use my right arrow key to move from data point to data point, or my left arrow key, or you can use the mouse. When cycling through points, it's sometimes easier to use the keyboard. So there's my data point, and I can also pull up a second coordinate tool and drag it to another data point. Let's say right there. All right, and lots of times in graphs you want to find the changes of from one data point to the other. So the change in time, how long it takes to go from this point to that point, and then change in position. So you can take a look at these two data points and you can say, okay, 1.4 seconds minus 1, so that's 0.4 seconds. And then I got a 1.64 and a 1.56, find the change in position. So you could do that. Or you could use what's called the delta tool. So let me click on this guy and get rid of it. Click on the X button there. And I'm going to go down to this bottom data point here. And what I'm going to do, let me center this a little bit. If I right click on it, I get a little menu and I'll say show delta tool, which gives us a little shaded region, and I can pull that corner up to, let's say, that one right there that I was using. Okay, or was it this one here? I think it was this one. And let me move it down here so I can make it look like rise over run. So there's my change in time, 0.4 seconds. That's the difference between these on the time axis. And here's my change in position, 1.08 meters. So lots of times we want to find changes or deltas between 2 points. So that's how I do it. I grab the coordinate tool, bring it down to a data point of interest, and then I can move or right click on it to get the delta tool, which is this blue shaded region, and pull it and drag it to different data points so I can see the deltas between different points there. So that's the delta tool. You'll notice that the time increment between these is, well, actually let me get rid of the delta tool here. Clicking the X button. It looks like it's 1 second, then it goes to, if I click on it here and use the right arrow key and left arrow key, it's a 0.05 second time change, okay, which may be good for an experiment, but sometimes you want finer increments. So what you can do here is change what's called the sampling rate, how many samples it collects per second, so you can see a finer set of data. So let me delete this run. Right down here, delete last data run. I'll delete it. And let me delete the tool while we're at it. And let me grab the cart and I'll do another one with a higher sampling rate. So here's the cart. And I'm going to change it to, let's say, 40 samples a second. So I'll click record. And I get a little more data there. The increments of time are finer. Let's take a look at, well, we can take a look at the graph here. It looks like we're a quarter second, so it's twice as fast, which makes sense. Let me grab it again. And this time I'll go 100 hertz. Let's take a look at that one, record. And you can see I even get finer sets of data points. So you can alter that. Sometimes if you go too fast, you'll get too much data, and you'll see lots of jumpiness in the graph because of any kind of jitter. So there's a happy medium there. I had one trial, I deleted it, then I ran 2 more. There's another button here. Looks like a colorful triangle type thing. is that if I click on it and make it highlighted, I can click a run or another run so I can see them simultaneously. So I can see run 1, run 2 right next to each other, which is nice. Or if I click on it again and unhighlight it, so it's not highlighted now, so there's like an on and off type thing. If it's not highlighted, then I can toggle between the two. So it doesn't let me select both, it lets me see one or the other. Run 1, run 2, run 1, run 2. And again, if I click on it again and highlight it, then it's in a mode where I can select both. So that's a nice little feature there. So I'll click on run 1 there, take a look at it. One last thing you might want to do is move this graph around, so you can, if you just click on the graph itself, you can click and move it around so you can take a look at different portions of it. And if you click on the axes themselves, you can scale. I can change the time scale there, and I can change the time scale there. And then one last thing, you might notice that the first data point is not collected right at 0. It's if you look at the graph here, we can take a look at it. It's at 0.15 meters. That's because I put the cart there. So if you want to zero out the sensor when you first start, which is good for some things, you can also click the 0 button before you start collecting data. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to put the cart probably about the same place I had it before. And before I start collecting data, I'm going to say 0. So it zeroed it out. And I'll click record now. And you'll see for this trial, move up a little bit, it's definitely at 0 because it's zeroed out. So that's a nice little feature if you want to make sure that your data is at 0 when you begin with. So those are some tools that I used. So the coordinate tool to move a cursor onto a data point, right click it, brings up the delta tool. You can delete that tool. Then you can zero out a sensor with the 0 button there when you first start collecting data, move around graphs, and change axis scaling. So those are some features you'll commonly use when analyzing data on a graph.